Hey, my name is Ryan Brown with 360 Subscription Billing, and I'm here today to take you on a little product tour of NetSuite with 360 Subscription Billing, Suite Projects, and Advanced Revenue Management. This is a common mix of things for SaaS software companies that have professional services. Here's a little view, a process flow, if you will, before we get into NetSuite and look at a bunch of screens and records of how this would work. Now, whether you use NetSuite CRM for your opportunity quotes, you use an external sales CRM, you use e-commerce, the sales order is the hub of the wheel, as I like to say in NetSuite, from a sales to cash perspective. From that sales order, when you approve it, you start to see some green. In other words, 360 Subscription Billing, contract lines. If you're the kind of organization where you've got a professional services project and kicking off the project or going live on particular milestones of the project is driving what we like to say item fulfillment, that will essentially reset your contract start date, your billing rev rec start date based upon those things, so that you can then get your initial invoicing out from that sales order, any let's say one-time upfront services that you may be billing for, any initial billing periods, and then you're done with the sales order. You're done with the native NetSuite steps. We can work with electronic bank payments. We can work with suite payments processors to automatically pull and apply payments to this invoice. And then from there, you've got what we call a contract and contract lines for any recurring, let's say, SaaS license products or items that will automatically bill for recurring billing periods, automatically pay, automatically deliver emails to your customer and as many contacts as you want. And then, of course, we have automated renewal in NetSuite if you want that to happen, and CRM transactions are back to a sales order, in addition to credits, adjustments, usage, functionality that we'll be touching on, won't be touching on fully, but we'll touch on a bit lightly in this product tour today. So here's an example of a homepage dashboard. It's got some reminders from me, unpaid invoices, orders pending fulfillment that may not have kicked off or gone live with their projects, some dashboards for, what's my monthly recurring revenue looking like, how is my recurring revenue changing as I have add-ons, net new sales, downsells or downgrades of my software, upsells or upgrades of my software. We're going to see an example of an upsell or an upgrade and an add-on here in the product tour today. With a customer in NetSuite, you can configure, multiple contacts. This contact may need to get renewals. This other contact may need to also get invoices and statements going through 360 Subscription Billing. And I'm assuming that you have a suite payments processor in this case. I have a credit card on file for the customer stored that we'll be using for automated payments. And I'll start with a sales order. Now, the sales order is a fully completed status of build, but you'll notice that it has a box checked for start new contract. It means when it's approved, it's going to create a contract that I can then begin to add contract lines to. In other words, things that 360 Subscription Billing is going to manage and automate in NetSuite for you, such as licenses to recur bill, recur pay, or renew. I have here a software license, and you can see the term was set on the line. We'll see how these dates got set on the term, because this date is different than the date that the order was placed or booked, which was in December of 2022. And then I have this implementation project with 482 hours at $50 an hour for 24,000. We're going to bill it in advance, and I've got a project in Suite Projects linked to this. Now, I'm not going to go deep into Suite Projects today, but suffice to say, I created this from a project template. You probably would too. That will set up a schedule of commonly used tasks and milestones. In this case, I have the systems launch milestone, which in this project, after we've tracked hours against it, you can see that ended up actually happening on the 3rd of 2023. So you can flow that, because it's related to your sales order, to the first related record, as we call it in the flow here, the fulfillment. So in this case, we're going to set the fulfillment is going to drive the kickoff date of that project, or was driven from the kickoff date rather. And then when I go to invoice for everything, I can see that I've got my first billing period amount for my quarterly billed software with my full amount of the implementation to be billed in advance, because now we've kicked things off, even though there's remaining services to be delivered and remaining recurring billing periods for my software to be billed as well. My invoice could look like this. The first billing period now starting on that January 3rd date for a full quarter, 2,000, and here's my hours billed in advance for my implementation project. That was paid. You could see that as another related record to this invoice here. That got paid through that card that we saw on file earlier. When that fulfillment occurred, it created a contract line. As we saw in the flow chart earlier, it sets that start date and it knows what it recalculates its end date. It recalculates its first recurring bill date, as we call it. And that contract line lives on a contract that now has its own billing dates and is its own gross amount billed to date, and it will roll up some recurring revenue values. The transactions tab of these contracts shows me my sales order, my fulfillment, my invoice. You can see here, my first recurring invoice was automatically generated, and I don't have any one-time charges on it. It's just the next quarter of my software going through July of 2023 from April. On my contract, I can come here now and use the contract change button to easily come in and say, hey, I want to change a price of this contract line starting on this date. And I want to increase it by 1,000, or when I want to add on this additional license. In this case, we're going to upgrade to an enterprise class software license from what we sold them originally. So the price is going to go up, and it's going to happen to go up 1 month into a quarter of my existing billing. And I'm going to add on another license, maybe for another site within my corporate customer. And of course, I want to throw in another 482 hours of services. So this will create for you the sales order without you having to do it all. And then that sales order can be linked to a new project for the add-on and the upgrade of these sites. And off we go. It's kind of the same process that we saw earlier, right? And on the sales order line, you can see I've got this in contract action populated, and I've got net recurring revenue values being calculated, because in this case, I had something, a quarterly billed subscription that I'm replacing 1 month into the second recurring quarter here. So we're prorating, in this case, $2,000 to bill for those 2 months, because what was $2,000 a quarter is now being replaced by $3,000 a quarter. It's an enterprise product tier, if you will. And you can even see that, we're co-terming. They're all going to auto renew, and I'll scroll way to the right. You can see there are recurring revenue values being calculated on the line as well. Even though it's worth $12,000 net annually for a brand new license added on in net at that enterprise grade, my net annual increase is $4,000. And that's what's driving a lot of the analytics and the reporting that we get on the homepage that we saw earlier. So this project does its thing. It drives a kickoff, the early project kickoff on May 3rd. Pretend it's all the same date. Keep a nice clean 2 out of 3 months for the sake of proration. You can see on my contract, once I activate it or fulfill it, and I don't have to fulfill it. I can just set the dates to what they are up front on the sales order. I don't have to have the project driving anything. That's now setting a new set of contract lines here. It cancels my original contract line that's being replaced, that a price change or upsell, if you want to call it that, similar, is occurring. And now you can see this term begins when the other one ends. And I've got this add-on with its own term that, again, I co-termed, so they'll all renew together in January of 2024. At the contract line level, you can see this. You can see that this line here was added as an add-on. You could see that this line here was added as a price change, or you could call it an upsell if you wanted, and it replaces this prior line with this term. And then this original contract line had a cancellation date, so it's now in a canceled status, and it was replaced by that enterprise grade tier upgrade. We also calculated a contract credit for this, a prorated amount due back from the previous billing. So let's talk a bit about that. What 360 subscription billing has done automatically just by entering these dates is it's calculated a prorated amount due back for the original contract line because I'd already billed in advance a whole quarter. Well, I've got 2 months out of that quarter due back in the form of a credit because I'm going to be prorating now higher contract rate per month across that quarter amount to bill you for the enterprise grade as of the date of the upgrade. So let's see what that happens when this contract credit gets automatically created and applied through a NetSuite credit memo to the invoice for all of this. You can see the invoice is $23,000 and some change, but the amount due is only $22,613. Why? It's because I've got both of these upgraded licenses. I've got my services that I'm billing in advance through that project, but it knows that that credited amount, those 2 quarters that I'd already billed previously, that's due back to the customer. So we're going to automatically apply it to this invoice. That's a lot of manual work saved with that proration, with the creation, the application of the credit memo to net to this amount due on the add-on and the upsell and the additional professional services project that all occurred here. And here's this credit memo that you could see is fully applied and has a link back to that contract credit. And it's going to spread the reversal of the revenue as well over that period. So I'm going to go back here. I haven't talked about advanced revenue management yet. We'll look at it here in a second, but what needs to happen on the revenue elements, as they're called in NetSuite, is that for that original subscription or contract line, now as of that date, I need to prorate and reverse out that revenue from any future periods to make sure that I don't recognize them, as well as making sure that no revenue gets recognized there. And we're going to add into our revenue arrangement, as we call it in NetSuite, a new revenue element that represents the upsell or the price change that has that prorated rev rec portion for the partial period and then the full recurring periods that follow. So keep that in mind as we keep going forward, because when July hits and that next recurring quarter occurs, now I'm just billing for 2 enterprise grade subscriptions at $3,000 a quarter, right? All my proration is done, all my crediting is done, all my one-time stuff is done. Now I've just got nice, easy, clean quarterly billing, but now I've got 2 software licenses that I'm billing instead of 1. The same thing happens for the final quarter of that year, getting me into January of 2024. And I go back to my contract and I can see, when it was last billed, when it was next billed, and this next bill date is being driven from the renewals. So I set to auto renew. You can create renewals as transactions. You can also just have subscriptions auto renew into the next year subscriptions, which is what you see here. They're going to start 2024, end in 2025. They are now what's driving the next bill date on this contract that I have billed now $20,000 of recurring revenue against. And speaking of advanced revenue management, kind of touching on it at the end, the 360 subscription billing revenue management plugin links revenue right through the contract. Think of your lines as your billing schedules or your subscriptions from a billing perspective. We saw the transactions tab shows me all of my transactions over time as well here. Invoice, sales order, credit memo, what have you. And then revenue management, it'll show me my related revenue arrangements. And this is the first one. It's the biggest one because this is where I had all of my professional services. And advanced revenue management is super powerful. It can do carve-outs. In this case, you could see my revenue amounts may be slightly different from my sales amounts because it's doing allocation across the services and the software, if you may need to do so for various 606 purposes. It may even be carving out based upon fair value price rules and whatnot that we have set up. But you could see we've merged together all of the services that kind of only went out on the sales orders. We've merged together all the software licenses that are sourced from contract lines, as well as the credit memo for the partial amount due back to net to the really total revenue value for that whole year, that first year. And then if I go back into the menu here, you could see that the way it's designed from these revenue arrangements, are the revenue elements that represent the individual subscriptions or services or items, if you will, for whatever terms they are. And from these plans, they'll have forecasts and actual plans in case, dates materially change or something between when you kick off and when you actually begin your rev rec. But these actual revenue plans that you can see here are what ultimately have journal entries posted against them to spread the revenue based upon whatever rule you choose in NetSuite. And these journal entries will do line level posting per the revenue schedules that are now decoupled from my billing schedules. I was billing quarterly, but I'm recognizing revenue monthly, straight line, and I'm prorating the first and last periods. So when you go to the menu, this is what it looks like. I've just put in the month of January. So I could mark all of these and begin to book from deferred revenue and into income using revenue management and the journal entry bulk creation process. Also related to that contract is another revenue arrangement. We created another one on the renewal. It's a nice clean $12,000 throughout the year. Not as much fun stuff happened through it, but this is the process that would be very well managed, as you could see, very powerful with these three modules working together in NetSuite, and highly automated, highly accurate, highly auditable within NetSuite. And again, my name is Ryan Brown. This has been NetSuite with 360 subscription billing, suite projects, and advanced revenue management. Thanks for watching. We hope to hear from you.